Today, I'm going to talk about how I've dealt with difficult guests I've booked on podcasts I've produced. Let me tell you right now, I'm not mentioning the names of these people because I'm not an asshole, but I will also say that the last story is about Andy Dick. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. It all helps the algorithm. I'd also like to say that today's executive producer is the one and only Christopher Hart. Without their big baller support, I'd probably be at a gas station selling candy bars to people, telling them that I'm raising money for a basketball team that doesn't exist. But thanks to Christopher's big baller support, I don't have to do that. And if you'd like to become a big baller supporter of the show, you can go ahead and click the Patreon link in the description below. Welcome to Catching You Up with
Nadav.
So these are a collection of stories where, as a producer, I was either taken aback by the behavior of some of the guests that we invited onto the shows that I was producing, which were some of the biggest comedy podcasts around at the time. Like, imagine being an absolute nightmare to the talent wrangler or booker, and you're being an absolute to the person responsible for booking you. You think it's gonna be easy to get back on that show after that? Maybe yes, maybe no. But that is a risk that could potentially fuck with your money. And we don't do that. So this first story, and at the time we were working out of a small warehouse space in a business park in Reseda, California. And the total amount of staff that we had in the building was 4, including me. But I needed 3 people in the booth to record an episode, and I needed 1 additional person to be in the lobby, having eyes on the front door in case anyone tried to come in or knock. So this guest shows up and dangles their keys, saying, I need one of your PAs to go fill up gas in my car. And a PA means production assistant. It's essentially just a meat body. But podcasting isn't like that. There aren't just extra bodies. Oh boy, this is gonna be a day, isn't it? Now, I believe what I said was something along the lines of, oh, normally we could absolutely do that for you, just we're a little understaffed today, and I need all hands on deck. So let's get through this recording, and then if you still need your gas filled up before you leave, we could totally send someone on a run to go do that for you. And that leads to one of my major rules of producing. If a guest comes in just kind of fire and hot, and it seems like they need to feel some level of control, give it to them. You need them there to record an episode. So this guest came in, immediately demanded that someone go fill up their car with gas, and then just started giving notes about just the state of the studio. These pictures are crooked. This bathroom vent is way too loud. Why haven't you called someone to come fix it? I say, we've been talking to some people and getting all sorts of crazy quotes, and yeah, it's a really annoying problem to deal with, and I'm glad that you're seeing it. Like this is what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and it's a much bigger headache than you think it is to get it fixed. But Lord knows we're trying. You ready to start recording soon? You need some water, coffee, alcohol? The office lighting in here is giving me a headache. Like, can we turn off some of these lights? It was just a machine gun rapid fire of notes that I wasn't asking for. You know what? I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. Once they start running out of steam, you just kind of sit them down in the lobby and you say, the bathroom's right there. I gotta go do some last minute checks and make sure that everything's ready for the recording, but you let this guy know if you need anything, all right? You then go and do all your checks, and if it's all ready to go, you go to the lobby and bring talent to the back to start recording. And as I seated this guest on set, they were asking for all sorts of things. Like more water, which honestly is fine. But then they were like, hey, why can't I see my framing? Like, I should be able to see what I look like on camera before we start recording. In my head, I'm like, there's a cooler way to say that, but yeah, 1 second, let me put that up for you. And they're like, why is it over there? It should be over here so that I can see what my natural eye line looks like. And it's like, okay, well, it's not, so. Anything else we need? I'm very good at putting a smile on my face and playing the part because I have one goal that day, and that's to record an episode. Whatever you need up until that point, I am your servant. Throughout the entire show, they were giving editing notes to remove jokes that didn't work. And to be clear, if they requested to remove something that made them look bad or someone that they knew looked bad, without question, that stuff gets removed. We're not trying to fuck up careers. We're not trying to fuck up anything. But creative notes is not something that we take from guests. Like, we made you sign a waiver. So we wrapped up filming. I told the host and their guest that they did a great job. As the guest was gathering their belongings, I asked, "Oh, hey, by the way, did you still want us to fill up gas in your car?" And they were like, "Nah, that's all right." And I was like, "Oh, for sure. All right, well, just let us know." And that's what I call producing. Let's take a quick break from the show and thank the sponsor of this episode, Factor Meals. It's hard to resist the siren call of popcorn and soda. That's why there's Factor. Factor's no prep, no mess meals are dietitian approved and get sent right to your front door. With over 25 meal options each week, everything tastes amazing and takes only 2 minutes to prepare. Just throw a Factor meal in the microwave or on the skillet and you're good to go. Last week, I've been really enjoying their honey mustard chicken, and all their cold pressed juices got me feeling way healthier than I probably am, but I've been enjoying everything that I've been getting from them. And you can enjoy it too. Choose from 6 menu preferences that helps you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. Whatever you're looking for, Factor's got you covered. Head to factormeals.com/Nadav50 and use code Nadav50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next box. That's Nadav50 at factormeals.com/Nadav50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. And I'd like to thank Factor Meals for sponsoring this episode. Let's get back to the show. So, story number 2 is a slightly different flavor than the first story. We had a big guest on one of our podcasts, and they were great. Super nice, grounded, funny, approachable. I was expecting them to be an asshole, and they weren't. They were fucking great. But the guest asked for a favor. They asked if their friend could come on and be a guest on that podcast at some point in the future. And we were like, I mean, sure, okay. Yeah, for sure, all right. So we record the episode with the big guest and it went great. And at a different date, we had the smaller guest come by and they showed up just kind of, like, I don't want to say they were like a diva or anything. They walked in and immediately were like, "Hey, my phone's on 5%. And then they just hand a phone. They're like, "Could you please charge this for me?" And it's like, yeah, sure, okay. And it's always wild to me when I see someone that is a grown adult that has a phone that is at 5% before lunch. Okay, sure, yeah, give me your phone, we'll charge it for you. So we take their phone, find a random iPhone charger, plug it in, and just leave it on the desk and let it do its thing, and then we just start recording with the guest. And during the recording, they barely participated in the interview. 2-word answers, they weren't really reacting to the clips we were showing them. It was just so clear that not only are we doing a favor to this person, but this person doesn't even really give a shit. It's like, what? Why are we doing this? Not a great show. But the funniest part to me was we're done recording and the guest comes out and takes their phone and it's just like, wait, it's at 1% now. Why didn't you? I asked you to charge this. We were like, dude, we plugged it in. I don't know what, like, we plugged it in. Like, you took it from the cable. You saw that it was plugged in. He's like, yeah, but the charger port is like kind of messed up. You need to jiggle it a little bit. Oh, no. Oh, what are you gonna do? Do you need us to call you an Uber to get the fuck out of here? Or like, what, dude? But yeah, he was talking to us like, man, I asked you to do one thing and you guys couldn't do that? In my head, I'm like, man, this is a wild tone that a guest is taking. They didn't show up that day to get their phone charged. They showed up to be on one of the biggest comedy podcasts in the world. And sure, I'm not a complete asshole. Like, I get, like, that sucks. I put myself in their shoes. I was thinking like, yeah, that would be shitty. And sure, if you would have given us a heads up that it had a faulty charging port, like, yeah, we would have we're like, oh, for sure, yeah, we'll wait till we feel the vibrator, we see the icon or whatever. But like, dude, we're not Geek Squad, dude. I mean, like, we are a squad of geeks, but like, we make podcasts, we don't charge iPhones. Sorry about that, champ. You're a guest. Be cool to the staff. Or don't. And now, story number 3, which was Andy Dick coming on to do Dr. Drew After Dark. So the reason that I'm leaving Andy Dick's name in this story is for multiple reasons. One, if you live in Los Angeles, you are 1 to 3 degrees away from someone having a bad experience with Andy Dick. And God bless him, I know that he's always struggled with sobriety, and I think the thing that made me really tense about having him in the studio is just all the stories that I heard from my friends. And at the time, I think that there were a bunch of TMZ videos that were surfacing like every few months of Andy Dick like interacting with someone on the street and then walking away abruptly, and then that person just running after him and knocking him out. I don't think anyone deserves to just be knocked out like that on the street, but what the fuck did Andy Dick say to them? I just knew that he was on my radar a lot for being in really weird altercations, like all the time. And as a podcast producer, that made me nervous. What kind of chaos are we inviting into the studio? And these were things that I expressed to Drew, where I was like, look, man, I'm really apprehensive about this. I kind of want to say no to this. At which point Dr. Drew said, look, Andy Dick respects me. He knows that he can't show up fucked up to whatever I'm inviting him in, or that he'll just get turned away. He knows that he needs to be on his best behavior when I invite him to things. And this was kind of early in the relationship of working with him. And so I had no reason to not trust Dr. Drew. So I said, all right, Drew, if you're vouching that this is a good idea, you've given me no reason to think otherwise. So if you're confident that it's a good idea, then I will support that. Dr. Drew Pinsky is objectively a smart guy. As a producer, sometimes you just gotta have a leap of faith, and you gotta trust the people that you work with. Now, I'm not saying that the show went smoothly. I will say that Dr. Drew was right, that Andy Dick showed up respecting him, didn't come up high on drugs, didn't keep on escaping into the bathroom to do drugs, and was just a fun, wacky Andy Dick during the entire episode. Honestly gives us some really good show. I'll put the link to that episode in the description below, but he brought a slide whistle in the middle of recording with him. I just see him doing something with his phone, and I think he like puts it on a tripod and just puts it somewhere on the table. And then I get a notification and it says, Andy Dick has just started going live on Instagram. And I'm like, but Andy Dick is here. And then I look and he's just doing an Instagram live of the current episode that we're filming that's gonna get released in like a week. I think he was really big into Cameo at the time. And he's just doing cameos left and right. So much that I think in the middle of the episode, if I remember correctly, he starts doing cameos with Dr. Drew on the show. This is wild. Like, these are all crazy decisions and crazy choices, but it's a fun show. And it's a type of chaos that is right on the border of like, boy, this is, at any moment, this could have been a decent idea turned terrible. But it never turned terrible. He was on his best behavior the entire time. Honestly, pretty solid slide whistle work though. Like I do respect it. And Dr. Drew was right. Andy behaved himself enough during the entirety of the recording. And that episode released in April of 2019. And then in May of 2019, he went on Tiger Belly just a month after us and proceeded to have one of the biggest train wreck episodes of a podcast I had ever seen. Literally, as I'm watching it, I'm like I thought this is what Andy Dick was gonna do when we invited him into the recording studio. And he didn't. He behaved himself with Dr. Drew. And then later on, when Bobby Lee and Kalila came onto your mom's house, ask them about having Andy Dick on. That is the most interesting shit to me. Just podcast episodes going terribly wrong, and imagining it while you're in the producer seat, actively watching a fire grow bigger and bigger, just out of control. But yeah, that's a couple examples of difficult guests that I've had to deal with as a producer of a podcast. Sometimes you get good show, sometimes you get bad show, but sometimes, unexpectedly, you get great show. And speaking of show, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And I'd like to thank everyone that you're seeing on screen right now. Without their help, it would be very difficult to be putting out this show as consistently and as regularly as I do. And if you'd like to become a producer of this show, you can go ahead and click the Patreon link in the description below. What a fun episode. I hope you liked those stories, but most importantly, I'd like to remind you,
this is a totally unconfirmed news.
see you next week.